Dre all day.
Sound check 1 2. You are tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline of showing up day after day. Discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves you, me, anyone else out there, him, her, them, and they, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one bundle, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one masterclass, and we call it Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is how to step outside of your comfort zone. Now, the definition of the comfort zone that we're going to use today is a situation where one feels safe or at ease. How do you step outside of a place where you feel safe or at ease? Why would you step into an area in which you're not safe, maybe a little bit dangerous, not at ease? Maybe you're feeling a little bit anxious. There's a little bit of tension. There's a little bit of maybe worry, concern. Why would you actually want to do this? I'm going to tell you today why to do it, or rather how to do it. Now, you may be wondering, well, why would anybody want to do this? Because Bob Proctor, who was prominent in the movie/book The Secret, he calls this the terror barrier. What I'm going to be talking about here today, stepping outside of your comfort zone, that's when you step into or step through the terror barrier. It is a good phrase that he used because most of us experience stepping outside of our comfort zone as fear, when really there's not any imminent danger in doing it. It's just you're uncomfortable with it simply because you haven't done it before. So that's really what this is about here today. Stepping outside of the things that you're used to doing and stepping into some things that you're not used to doing in order to make them something that you're used to doing. Because the comfort zone can expand, right? If you're only used to doing 3 things and you do those same 3 things over and over again, if I try to get you to do things number 4, 5, and 6, you may feel a little bit of fear or terror or anxiety about doing things 4, 5, and 6. But what I'm going to help you understand here today is that things 4, 5, and 6 are not going to injure you. They're not going to hurt you. You're not going to get sent to jail. You're not going to die. You're just uncomfortable with them. But you can get comfortable with them by engaging with them. That's what we're going to talk about here today. Stepping into and through that terror barrier. And instead of stepping outside of your comfort zone as fear, you can experience it as a new opportunity, like we talked about in yesterday's class. So some people see it as personal expansion. Once you get comfortable with stepping outside of your comfort zone, you're more comfortable. Like, let's say, again, you're used to things 1, 2, and 3, and then I introduce you to 4, 5, and 6, and you get comfortable with 4, 5, and 6. Now you got a little bit of momentum going, right? So now when I say, all right, well, let's try things number 7, 8, and 9, you're a little bit more open to it because you have the momentum of understanding that stepping outside of your comfort zone is not going to injure you, is not going to hurt you, is not going to crush you or defeat you or destroy you or send you backwards in any way. You're like, okay, it's okay to step outside of my comfort zone, especially if you get some positive outcomes from doing so. You're like, oh, well, hey, let me go do some other things that I haven't done before. Let me go get used to some other new things. Let me step through this terror barrier again. It's not even a terror barrier anymore because you're not feeling any terror. You're not feeling any fear or anxiety anymore. You're actually moving towards stepping outside of your comfort zone. You want to do it because you understand the power that you have in doing so, and you understand how much further ahead it puts you than the average person, and most people are average by definition, by being willing to step outside of your comfort zone. Most people are not willing to do it and not willing to engage with stepping outside of their comfort zone because they see it as something to be afraid of. And you're going to understand as we get into today's class why people come to see things that way. It's not just some illogical thing that makes no sense because people are dumb or that you're dumb. It's not because you're dumb that you don't want to step outside of your comfort zone. It's all part of our wiring as human beings, but there's a logical explanation to why we come to feel this way. And the good news for you is that you're in the right place at the right time. Listen to the right voice who's going to explain to you exactly why that is. So today what we're going to do, we're going to make it a more conscious thing for you to step outside of your comfort zone, meaning put you in a space where you understand when you're stepping outside of your comfort zone and you're okay with actually doing it, instead of you only stepping outside of your comfort zone when some random happenstance occurs, and then you maybe realize looking back, oh yeah, you know what, I stepped outside of my comfort zone in that situation. I want to put you in a space where you know you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, and then you actually do it and you're good with it. You're like, hey, I'm glad that I actually did that. It feels good to step outside of my comfort zone. That's what the angle is here today. And I want you approaching the edge of your comfort zone as fear, but identifying it as rather expansion. The exact same thing. You're doing the exact same thing. Sometimes you can see it as fear. Others you can see it as expansion. I want you to see it as expansion because I think usually we're more open. I would venture to guess that you're more open to doing something that helps you expand as a person rather than something that makes you fearful as a person. I mean, what do you think? Am I accurate in assuming that? You have to get your conscious mind engaged in order to do this because our emotions come from our subconscious, and you allow your subconscious, your emotions, to determine how you feel about stepping outside of your comfort zone. You probably won't do it as often as you could. But if you can logically understand why you're stepping outside of your comfort zone and how it's actually going to help you, then it'll be much easier for you to do it. Then you can allow your logic to tell your emotions to shut the fuck up, and then you can go do what you need to do. Expand yourself on purpose. Expand by demand instead of expanding by default, which most people never do after we pass through puberty. And then you can open yourself to a whole lot more possibilities in your life on purpose, not just by, again, random accident. So let's get right into it. Today's topic, once again, is how to step outside of your comfort zone, defined as a situation where you feel safe and at ease. Why would you step outside of that? Well, here's why. Number one, look at your goals. Or think of your goals, whatever they may be for you, and ask yourself, what are the common reasons that most people have for not having reached certain goals in life? Look at your goals, whatever you want to achieve in life that you have not yet achieved, and then ask yourself, why have I not achieved these goals? And then think to yourself, other people, when they have goals and they don't achieve them, what are the reasons they usually give? Your reasons probably sound just like their reasons. I'm gonna tell you what they are. The normal reasons people have for having not achieved their goals. And these may not necessarily be a bad thing, because sometimes, I mean, it takes a little bit of build up to reach a goal, right? So some people don't reach a goal. They say, well, I don't have the money yet to reach that goal. And it makes sense. Sometimes it takes time to save up some money, to make some money, right? They say, well, I haven't put enough time in yet. It takes time to build some things. I don't know the right people yet. That makes sense. I don't have the right knowledge yet. That makes sense also. Even though knowledge is available to all of us, that doesn't mean you can consume all of it at one time. So it makes sense when money, time, people, or knowledge, or something similar has kept you from reaching a goal. But here's what I want you to ask yourself after that. Once you come to terms with the reasoning that you have for having not reached your goal, ask yourself this question. If I had to reach my goals right now, let's say in the next 24 hours or the next 3 days or the next 90 days, if I had to do it, what would I have to do? I'm pausing there so you can think on that one for a moment. If I had to reach one of my goals, think of any one goal of yours that matters a lot to you right now. If I had to reach it now, there was a deadline on it within the next 90 days, what would I have to do in order to reach that goal? Knowing that at this moment right now, I don't have a certain amount of money, time, relationships, knowledge. What would I have to do in order to reach the goal in 90 days if I had to? You're going to come up with some answers. If you're an intelligent person, which I know you are because you listen to podcasts, and people who listen to podcasts tend to trend more intelligent than the average individual, according to studies. So I know you're smart. So with us both agreeing that you're smart, what are your answers that you came up with? If you had to reach your goals in the next 90 days, what are some things you would have to do? Again, given your limitations. There are certain things that you could do. What you're going to realize is this, that there are certain things that you could do, that you could be doing right now without me even prompting you with those questions. You're just not doing them. Do you agree? You say, well, I want to build this big company, but right now I don't have any employees because I don't have any money, and I don't have money to hire employees because I haven't put enough time in my business yet, and I don't know the right people who can, help me do it any faster. So that's the reason why I haven't done it yet, but I'm on my way, Dre. Or if I say, all right, you got 30 days to do it. You still don't have money. You still don't have that much time in business. You still don't have the people, but you got 30 days to achieve it. What would you do now knowing that you got 30 days to get it done? You will probably come up with some creative ways to find some people to help you out, despite the fact that you don't have the money to give them, despite the fact that you haven't been in business that long. You would figure out some creative ways to get it done. Would you not? Of course you would. So what's stopping you from figuring out some creative ways to get it done now? Why are you waiting and allowing money to hold you back and add time to the equation? There's no reason why you're doing that. It's just because you haven't been prompted to do anything different. So when you get the answers for the things that you would do if your goal had a deadline, a short time period deadline, a very immediate deadline, and you had to start making progress now instead of later, there are some answers to that question, which means there are some things that you could be doing right now that you're just not doing. So what I suggest you do, what I demand that you do now, we're still on point number 1, is that you actually start doing those things. Yeah, I know you don't have the money. I know you don't know the people. I know you don't have all the knowledge. I know you don't have the time, but you got a deadline now. So you have even less time. So now you need to get creative and start actually doing the things that you would do if there was a deadline staring you in the face. And I want you to understand, as a side note, that there is always a deadline staring in your face. The deadline is called death, because every one of us is facing that deadline. The thing is, you just don't know when the deadline is going to hit. That's the thing about this deadline that separates from the deadlines at work, the deadlines at school, the deadlines you get from, I don't know, anywhere else. A bill you didn't pay, they say, all right, you got till this date to pay it, or we're going to shut off the service, or we're going to kick you out of the group. All right, those deadlines, at least you know when they're coming. This deadline, you have no idea when it's coming. Literally the deadline. You're always on deadline. So how about you start doing those things right now? This will help you step out of your comfort zone. And what I aim to, well, let me not even say what I aim to, but what you should aim to help make you comfortable with this is the fact that the worst possible case outcome is that you die before you finish achieving it. But at least you started. I mean, at least you got to work on it. At least you did something with it. Best case outcome is that you actually achieve it and you didn't have to have life force you to move to action. You didn't have to life force you. You didn't have to wait for life to force urgency upon you. Because, I mean, life already has urgency upon you. You're just the only one who doesn't know it. I know it. You may be the only one who's unaware that life has urgency forced upon you because there's a clock ticking on you right now. Thing is, again, none of us can see that clock. Go and look. If you want some inspiration or some ideas, go look at someone who's in the same space as you, but they're ahead of you in the race, and ask yourself, what is that person doing that I'm not doing? What did that person do when they were in a similar situation to mine that I am not doing right now? Look at that person who's ahead of you in the same space as you. Look at them as if you were a 5-year-old child looking at you compared to them. And then ask that 5-year-old child, what's the difference between them when they were in my position and me in my position? What are the differences? What were they doing then that I am not doing now? I guarantee that 5-year-old child will notice very obviously the differences between you and that person. 5-year-old will point those things out. So if you think like the 5-year-old who's open-minded to everything, they're not jaded and thinking that they know everything like you are, they're going to point some things out that would be obvious to you if you weren't so, again, hardened and jaded to believe that you've seen everything already. They're going to notice some things. And those things that get noticed by that 5-year-old being channeled through your eyes, those are the things you need to start doing. Those are the adjustments that you need to start making. The reason why I'm giving you this example of being a 5-year-old child and looking at yourself compared to someone else who's been in your position through the eyes of a 5-year-old is that the 5-year-old doesn't have these habitual thought patterns that a 16-year-old or a 27-year-old or a 45-year-old has. These habitual thought patterns of, I already know that, I already saw that, I don't need to address that, that's been handled already, there's a reason why I'm not doing that. All right, we don't need any of that. All right, that's what you get. The older you get, the more of those you develop. All right, so I'm trying to take you backward. I'm trying to turn back your clock to where you didn't have these habitual thought patterns and your mind was wide open to every possibility, like we talked about yesterday. Get out of your habitual thought patterns and you can do this very effectively. What are you not doing that you could be doing right now that would shorten your timeline towards success? I guarantee that you have answers. There's no one who's listening to my voice right now can logically and reasonably answer that question and truthfully answer that question by saying nothing. There's nothing that I could be doing differently right now. Obviously, there's something. Of course, there's something. You're just not doing it because you think you have time. But let me remind you, as I've reminded you many times before, you never have time. Point number 2. Today's topic is how to step outside of your comfort zone. Number 2, you must determine which, quote, risks, close quote, are actually just inconveniences and or unknowns that you have just not wanted to address or you have just failed to address for whatever reason. See, this word risk, people like to throw around risk or say something is risky and it gives them an out cause to do nothing. That's the challenge with using this word risk. It gives us a reason to say, well, I shouldn't do that thing because it's risky. You know, I might get injured. I might lose money. I might lose time. It might not work out. I don't want to do something and not know what I'm doing. I got to make sure that I do it right when I do it. I got to make sure I have all my plan in place. I don't want to take that risk. Usually the things that we call risk is bullshit. It's not actually a risk. It's just that we don't want to deal with the discomfort of the situation. So we call it a risk to justify doing nothing. Most things that we call risks are simply inconveniences. We just don't want to deal with them, or unknowns that we're afraid of addressing. So therefore we don't address them because nobody's holding us accountable to do so. Here's the truth though. Many things that are outside of your comfort zone, they aren't risks at all. They're just things that you have avoided for so long, you have come to deem them as risky. That's what happens. You avoid anything for long enough, you will come to believe that there's a reason why you're avoiding it, and your mind will create a story that supports your avoidance, that makes you logically and consciously okay with avoiding that thing because you've created this story that makes it make sense to avoid it when the story makes no sense whatsoever. And because you have no one in your life holding you accountable for your bullshit, you keep repeating the bullshit to you and you just accept it for the rest of your life because nobody's ever been, again, in position to hold you accountable for pointing out your bullshit and telling you that it's bullshit and making you do something different. Allow me to reintroduce myself. I'll be that person. For years, when I was playing basketball professionally, many years, even when I wasn't professional, before and after, I did not run outdoors. I wouldn't do any kind of outdoor running, even though I like doing conditioning. I always like doing conditioning workouts, even on the basketball court. I would never do any kind of running outside. I would not play basketball outside. I wouldn't jog outside unless it was on the sand in Miami Beach. Nothing on concrete, because I believed that by avoiding the concrete, I was saving my knees, because I looked at the concrete, I saw how hard it was, and I felt how my knees felt because I was a basketball player, and I knew that my knees would get sore every time that I worked out, and I needed to ice my knees and things like that. Not sore like hurting, but you can feel that you've been using your knees. I mean, basketball is hard on the knees. That's the way that the game is designed. So therefore I would stay away from concrete because I felt the hardwood floor is a little bit softer. It gives a little bit more. I'm not going to do anything on concrete because concrete is going to mess up my knees. Even after I stopped playing basketball for a while, I did not do anything on concrete because I'm like, concrete is going to make my knees worse. I mean, I beat my knees up for 20 years playing basketball. If I go run on concrete, I'm going to beat them up even more. I won't be able to walk when I'm 45 years old. I don't want to do that. I stayed away from concrete because of this belief. But then I decided, let me try running outside on concrete. If my knees get messed up, my knees start really killing me, then I'll stop. But let me at least try it and let me see what's going on. I decided consciously to step through the terror barrier, step out of my comfort zone, try to do something that I believed with a strong amount of logic that was going to make my knees hurt worse. But I tried it. Let me just try it and see what's going on. That was 5 years ago. And now I've done 2 marathons. I've run 20 or so miles every single week. Every race in between a marathon and a 5K, I've done all of them. And my knees feel great. Right now, I'm standing up while I'm recording this. My knees feel great. I still ice my knees after I run, but I don't have any extra soreness. I don't need to ice my knees twice in the same day most of the time. I feel good. I feel better physically right now than I felt when I was playing basketball. What I found out was, it wasn't concrete that was messing up my knees. It wasn't concrete that would mess up my knees. It was playing basketball that was hurting my knees. Not that anything's wrong with my body, but it's just the way that basketball is designed. You're running really fast, then you stop on a dime, stop all your momentum, and send yourself going back in the other direction. That kind of force that you're putting on your joints, that is what hurts the knees. The fact that you might bump into somebody while you're moving full speed or jumping and landing over and over and over again, especially for a player who's a very athletic type of player like I was, all that jumping and landing is putting a ton of force on your knees over and over and over again. That's why they say basketball is a young man's or young woman's sport, because all the force that it puts on your knees. And the thing is about your knees, you can't buy a new pair. You know, once you break them down, they're broken down. Even if you get a knee surgically repaired, it's never going to be exactly the same as it was before. So it was basketball that was messing up my knees. It wasn't running. And this is the way that our brain works. It supports our fears with reason. The longer you fear something, the longer you avoid something, again, as I said a moment ago, your mind will craft a story that makes it make perfect sense for you to support that fear. I had crafted a story in my mind and made it make perfect sense for me to avoid concrete. And every other basketball player I know had the exact same story. So we supported each other. We reinforced our own bullshit through our associations. And this is the way the law of association works. Another way the law of association works: when you have a bullshit story in your mind, you will associate with other people who have the exact same bullshit story. They believe it just as strongly as you, and all of you will support each other's bullshit to the point that you all believe it, because you got a whole community of people who all believe the same bullshit. Therefore, you all believe it's the truth when it's actually not. But if you open your mind to new possibilities and get around some people who think a little bit differently from you, you may realize that your belief is not actually a belief at all, because it's not based on anything true. It's just based on your opinion, which has hardened into belief, which you think is a fact when it's actually not any of the above. Jordan Peterson, his book 12 Rules for Life, really good book, philosophical book, very well written book. Audio book is great as well. He said this in, I believe it was the first chapter of the book. You avoid something long enough, you develop a fear of it because you've avoided it. That's the only reason you're afraid of it. If you avoid anything long enough, you're just avoiding it, you eventually start to fear that thing. And the reason you're fearing it is because you've avoided it. It's basically a self-fulfilling mindset. It goes around in a circle. All right, I avoided running on concrete because I thought it would mess up my knees. And I avoided it for so long that eventually got to the point that I was afraid to run on concrete, on a low level of afraid, because I thought it was going to destroy my knees. But there was nothing there. I had no hard proof in my life that said concrete messes up my knees. Zero. But because I avoided it for so long, I came to believe that I knew the truth, or the fact, quote unquote fact, that it was going to stop my knees from being in good shape, and I wouldn't be able to walk up steps. Wrong. This is what happens when you avoid something for long enough. When you allow your comfort zone to harden into dogma, that whatever you're comfortable with is the right things, and anything that's outside of your comfort zone is something wrong with it, or something risky about it, or something to be afraid of regarding it. Most of it is bullshit. And human beings, here's the thing about all of us: we are really good at selling ourselves bullshit, and we're really good at buying our own bullshit. We are the number one consumer of our own bullshit. So you got to make sure you're checking yourself on your bullshit, and or finding someone who is willing to keep it real with you and hold you accountable for your bullshit, and not allow you to keep spewing your bullshit and selling it to yourself over and over and over again. As Notorious B.I.G. said, never get high on your own supply. Point number 3. Today's topic is how to step outside of your comfort zone. Find out how staying in your comfort zone is hurting you. Because this is another way that you can move yourself to action. So one way is to move yourself towards the positive outcomes of stepping outside of your comfort zone, as we talked about in points 1 and 2. Now this one, we're going to talk about maybe some negative ways of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Tony Robbins, I once heard him say that in order to move a person to action, for any of us to move ourselves to action, we need one of two things: either inspiration or desperation. Now, if you're somewhere in the middle, then you're going to be comfortable and you're going to stay where you're at. But if you're inspired, you'll move forward. And if you're desperate, you'll move forward. Desperate to get away from something, you'll get moving. Inspired to move towards something, you'll get moving. But anywhere in between, you'll stay where you're at. Your current life situation is a reflection of your current comfort zone. You want to know what your comfort zone is in life? All you got to do is look at how you're living right now. And then think of a time in your life when you decided that you had enough of the status quo, that you didn't like how things were, and you didn't like it enough that you were willing to do something about it. And what'd you do? You did something about it. You moved yourself to action. Maybe your first action didn't work. Maybe the second, third, and eighth action did not work, but you kept moving yourself to new actions to figure something out until you figured it out. Key mental toughness word: until you figure something out, simply because you had to get out of that situation that you were in. And you did. You eventually found yourself in a new situation. Why? Because you were either inspired or desperate enough to do something about it. So you've done this before. I bring up that situation to remind you that you have done this before. This is not a new skill I'm telling you about. This is a skill you already got. It may be lying dormant within you because you haven't been forcing yourself to use it, but it's still there. So ask yourself this question: if everything stays as it is in my life for the next 3 years, 5 years, 6 weeks, am I okay with that? That's the question you got to answer. Nobody can answer that one for you. If everything stays as it is, am I all right with that? Am I all right with my life not changing at all for the next 5 years? Now, if you're okay with that, you want to keep things exactly the same, listen, just keep doing what you've already been doing up to this point. Whatever you were doing before today, your whole life up till today, just keep doing it, or you'll have the exact same life. It might get a little bit worse because the world's moving forward while you stay the same, but it'll be pretty close. All right. If you want to create any kind of change, however, you'll have to do something other than what you have grown used to doing. So the question becomes this: where would staying the same hurt you? Where would staying the same make things worse for you? Where would staying the same cause you a high level of discomfort? Because it matters to know this, because the more uncomfortable it would make you, the more it would hurt you, the more it would bother you to stay exactly the same, the higher the chances that you'll do something about it. Where would staying the same lead to disappointment for you if you're not already there? Where are you already disappointed about things being how they are? Where are you already inspired or desperate about the status quo? Where are you already dissatisfied enough about a certain situation that you're willing to do something different? You don't know what, but you know you got to do something and you're ready to do it, whatever it's going to be. Once you have answers to that, then you can move yourself out of your comfort zone. You'll be willing to step through that barrier. Again, there's not a terror barrier. It's just this is what we got to do. All right. I don't care what it is. It ain't terror when you know you need to go towards it. There's only terror when you have a comfort zone to step back into. You got a safe haven to return to. But when you have no bridge to go back across, when the bridge has been burned, okay, then it's not terror anymore. It's like, I just got to do what I got to do because I got to get out of this situation. I don't know what's on the other side, but it got to be better than where I'm at. Maybe it's not, but it's different from where I'm at. I'd rather go there than stay where I'm at. Once you get to that point, you'll be willing to step outside of your comfort zone, and you won't need anybody to tell you how to do it. You'll just do it. But if you can manufacture moving yourself to that space mentally, then you can take care of the other things. It's basically going above the problem, going over the top of the problem, like I talked about in my book, Work on Your Game. So let's recap today's class, which is how to step outside of your comfort zone. The definition being a situation where one feels safe or at ease. Bob Proctor called this a terror barrier, because it's an area that many of us stepping outside of our comfort zone, we experience it as fear rather than personal expansion. But it could be either one. It just depends on the way you look at it, the perspective that you have. And what we're doing today is making it a more conscious thing to step outside of your comfort zone so that you're not reacting to the approaching of the edge of your comfort zone as fear, but you're looking at it as expansion, a positive thing. You may have to get your conscious mind, you actually have to get your conscious mind engaged to do this, because our emotions come from the subconscious. You allow the emotions to control. The emotions want to keep you the same. All right. Logically, you got to overpower your emotions to do something different. Point number 2, look at your goals and the common reasons for not having reached them, such as money, time, people, knowledge, etc. And ask yourself, if I had to reach my goals within the next 30 days, what would I have to do? Given your limitations of resources, you have answers. Since you have answers, that means you can start doing those things right now, whatever those things are. See who's ahead of you in the same space as you. Ask yourself what they're doing or what they were doing when they were in your space that you're not doing right now. Look at them like a 5-year-old kid and ask yourself, what's the difference? The 5-year-old will notice every single difference and point them all out to you, and you need to use that information to do something different. Get out of your habitual thought patterns and action patterns to do this effectively. Point number 2, determine which risks are actually just inconveniences and or unknowns that you have not wanted to address. Truth is, many things that are outside of your comfort zone are not risks at all. They're just things that you've avoided for so long that you have come to deem them as risky. I didn't run outdoors for many years because I thought I was saving my knees, but now I run marathons, I run outside all the time, run 20 or so miles every single week, and my knees feel excellent. It was basketball that was hurting my knees, not running outside. But this is the way our brain works. It supports our fears with reasons, and it comes up with logical stories that make our fears make sense. As Jordan Peterson said in his book, 12 Rules for Life, you avoid something long enough, you develop a fear of it because you've avoided it. It's a self-fulfilling mindset. Point number 3, find out how staying in your comfort zone is hurting you. Tony Robbins said, to move a person to action, we need inspiration or desperation. Your current life situation is a reflection of your current comfort zone. So if you want to know what you're comfortable with, look at your life. Think of a time in life, however, when you decided that you had enough of something, enough of the status quo, and you moved yourself to action. You have done this before, have you not? Yes? So ask yourself, if everything stays as it is for the next 5 years, am I all right with that? If the answer is yes, then just keep doing the same things. If the answer is no, you had to do something other than what you've grown used to doing. So where would staying the same hurt you the most? Where are you most willing to do something different? That's the question. When you get an answer to that question, now you can start moving yourself to action. Where would you be most disappointed if nothing changed in your life? That's where you need to start. When you figure that out, it'll be very easy to step outside of your comfort zone. You won't even need anybody to tell you the how to. This is going over top of the problem by identifying a bigger problem, knocking over that domino, and knocks over all the other dominoes on its own. Work on your game. Dre all day.